Welcome to our Autodesk ArtCAM Standard Overview, the Christmas edition. For this tutorial, we're going to go through and create a Christmas fireplace. We're going to do a lot of sketching out from scratch, so we're going to teach you how to very quickly draw these vectors, sketch them out, snap in place. To do a general fireplace design, we're going to work with some textures as well as some existing clip art. To start, we're going to create a brand new model. In this new model, I'm going to choose to work in inches, and I'm going to set this up at a size of 24 by 24 inches, and I'm going to set my resolution around the 1600 mark. Let's click OK. From here, we can start sketching. The first thing we're going to sketch out is the idea, the size for the whole fireplace. So if we select and create a quick rectangle here, we can sketch it out and then we can round it up to exact sizes if we want to. In this case, I'm going to set it up to 16 by 11. I'm going to create and close that off. Now that I've sketched it out, I want to make sure it's centered. So I always take my piece and I press F9 to center it right in the middle of my model. Now for the rest of the fireplace pieces, we're going to use this existing box and snap to it. So let's draw our pillars. I'm going to create another rectangle and just quickly snap to this corner, drag up, snap again. We're looking about, well, around that size. That looks good. I'm going to right click to create and close. And to do the other pillar, I have no reason to try and draw it and make it match and all that. All I have to do is grab its corner and make a copy while I drag it by holding the Control key. Now we have two identical pillars on either side of this fireplace. Next, we'll create the main part of the fireplace. So again, we just snap. And then here, this is a snap that came in last year, and this is really nice. This allows you to snap anywhere on that line. I'm going to say, yeah, I like that. Let's create and close. Now we need another square here for the inside of the fireplace. I'm not going to try and draw a square and line it up and center it and everything. Instead, all I'm going to do is offset this piece. So we're going to use the offset sharp and we'll just interactively drag that in until we're happy with it. That looks good. So we close the offset tool. Nice, quick, and easy. The last two pieces we need are just the shelf on the top and the base. So we'll do another rectangle. And I'm just going to kind of sketch it out roughly in the size that I want. I'm not worried about the location yet. I'm just trying to set up the size here. So let's maybe make this a little bit longer. And we can go just a little bit deeper, maybe something like that looks okay. And then our bottom one, let's make this one a little bit shorter, but a little bit thicker. Yeah, maybe around there. We can go even just a little bit more still. Now that looks good. So I've created these, but like I said, I wasn't worried about the location yet. Let me move this way out of the way so you can really see what we're doing. I'm taking my cursor and I'm moving along till I find the snap for the midpoint. And then I click and drag and I go to my other midpoint, perfectly centered this way. So again, midpoint to midpoint. There we go. That is the general shape for a fireplace. That took a matter of just, what, a couple minutes to sketch this out? Now we can start making this 3D. Now before we start our work, let's look at our vector layers and our relief layers. I'm going to make a new vector layer and I want to call this, or let's call this Fireplace. I'm going to take all of these vectors and move to Fireplace. And let's rename this relief layer Fireplace. Now we can start making this piece 3D. I always like to use the layers. It makes your organization much better. Now for the general setup, we are going to take, you know what, let's do one more rectangle. It's just going to give me something to select, make it a little easier for me to work with. We'll grab all of these guys. We're going to open up our shape editor. And we're going to give this a small height. Let's go 0.25. And if we angle it, you can kind of see what we're doing here. Apply. Let's grab this inside piece, and we're just going to do a small 0.1. But let's make sure we switch it to merge high because we do have a little overlap here and we don't want those spike ups. So let's apply that. We'll grab our two pillars. And for these guys, let's go up something like 0.6. And then for the shelf at the top and the bottom, we'll go just a little bit thicker than the last one. And this one, let's do like 0.75. So 3/4 inch. And apply. Let's cancel that. Turn our vectors off, and there you go. There's your general shape. Again, just a couple quick minutes, very simple shapes. The detail we're going to add on, or the better stuff, will be done with textures. Let's turn our vectors back on, and let's talk about the texture now. So for the texture, I do want to put this on its own relief layer. That will allow me to alter or change it without messing around with this simple shape that I've made in the background. So with our texture relief layer active, let's select what we want to texture, which will be our pillar, this guy, and the other pillar, and we go to our texture relief. I'm going to choose selected vector and then from a file. The file we're going to grab is this brick wall. So this is a series of textures that we supply to you with the install of ArtCAM. These all come installed with ArtCAM for you to use. ArtCAM comes with actually somewhere around 500 3D clip art, and they're all available to you from your Relief Clip Art library, or you can use inside of there a textures folder, which is just one of the categories, and that's what I'm using here, those textures that came with the install. Let's choose this, and I'm just going to leave the sizes as they are to try it out, and paste it in place. Now it's a little rough looking, but the size looks correct. So the size of these little stones or the bricks is what we're looking for. But because it is a little fuzzy, we do need to smooth it out. The smooth tool is available here. So we open this up, and you have a slider bar here. You drop this down, we apply maybe one more to soften it out a little bit more, a little easier to machine. If we turn our vectors off, you can see the texture now that we have along the pillars and along the top bar of our fireplace. Okay, let's turn the vectors back on. Next, we're going to add some decoration. For the decoration, we're going to go to our Relief Clip Art library. And here I pulled out some existing reliefs that we have that are sort of Christmas themed. I'm going to start by grabbing this nutcracker. Let's bring this guy to the other side. So this is a really nice relief all ready to go. What we're going to do is resize it and position it right here. So before we resize it, we want to make sure our X, Y, and Z are all linked in, which we can see they are here. And then we can take it and we can just scale it down. We're, I don't know, roughly looking for around there is probably good. And we're going to position it here. However, he disappears, and that's okay. What's happening is the nutcracker is just really thin compared to the whole height here of our pillar. That's why we don't see it. So because it's so low, we need to make sure to give it a little extra boost up, a start height when we add it in. If we were to choose the add option when we add this in, it would take on the brick texture. We don't want that, so we know we need merge high. But giving that extra boost will make sure even with merge high it reaches this height and we can put the part together. Now we also need a relief layer that is going to be called decoration. Okay, let's position this guy. We'll view from the top. And we're just going to position it. We can use that vector as our guide. So his feet are sitting on the bottom here. And you can use the arrows on your keyboard for fine adjustments. Now back on that transform page, if you go to the secondary page, this is where you can give them that little boost up, the start height. And in this case, we're going to a height of 0.7. So with that height selected, let's click paste. And there we have our nutcracker. Now if we take a look, you can kind of just make out that the nutcracker has some brick texture inside of him. That's why he's a little bumpy looking. The reason for that is the relief layer itself is on add and we need to change it to a merge high. That's the way we want this guy to look. Okay, next piece, let's add in some presents. So I'm going to drag and drop those into my model. Let's make these guys bigger. They're definitely a bit too small still. Oh, let's try this. So this is what they look like. And I want to kind of position these so that they're overlapping the outer extents of my chimney here a little bit. Give it a little more 3D. I think that probably looks good. Can go over, can even make it just a little bit bigger. Yeah, there, I like that. And then of course this one, just like the rest, we need to be high enough over to the pillar. So we're going to come to that secondary page and give it the exact same start height and paste. Turn those vectors off. And lastly, we have our stocking that we're going to add in. So we'll grab this. And let's resize this guy. So just grab and pull up that corner. Let's try this out. And this guy I want to put around here somewhere. I'm kind of looking to have a bit of overlap with the top where it would be pinned on, and then some hanging into the fireplace here as well. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so that secondary page, and again, 0.7 for our start height to boost it up. All right, let's turn the vectors off. And if we turn our zero plane off, you can really see what we have to date. So our fireplace is coming together really nicely here. The next thing we're going to add into this are some logs and the fire. Now the logs, we have a couple cool tricks for you with this. I'm going to turn my zero plane back on so I can see my working area, and we're going to do the log from scratch. To start, we need to sketch out sort of the rough shape or the size of our log. It's going to do something like about this, maybe go a little bit bigger. That looks good. So let's say this is going to be one log. Now I could use the shape editor to make this 3D, which would round the top, but it would also end up rounding these bottom and side edges, and we don't want that to be rounded off. So the shape editor is not really the best way to do this. Instead, we're going to use a simple extrude. For an extrude, we need a drive curve, so I'll just do a polyline. I'm going to snap from midpoint to midpoint. And then the other thing we need for an extrude is our cross section. So for this, I'm going to use a simple arc and snap to create it, pull it out to the size that I want. And we can actually, let's pull this guy away just a little bit. We don't need it to be attached there. So we're going to take this and drive it down this to make our overall log shape. So let's deselect everything and open up our extrude tool. Grab our drive curve, select, use a centerline. Grab our cross section and select. And let's also make a new, oh, it won't let us do it while we're in that page. Let's cancel this page. Let's come here, new, let's call this logs. Let's go back and try that extrude one more time. Select this, select it, use a center line, grab that guy. And what I want you to see here is it's actually inside out. See the logs upside down? The reason for that is this was drawn backwards. So if we simply check the invert curve in Z, it flips it and it's now sitting positive the way we would expect the log to be. So let's apply and close that. And at this point, that log general shape is good, but we want to give it some texture so it looks a lot better. So if we do a quick view from the top here, we're going to load in a texture, and the wood grain will sit right on here using that selected vector option. Let's open up our Create Texture tool. Okay, so we choose Selected Vector from File, and we're going to select our file. All the way down at the bottom, we have our wood grain option. Select that. Make sure you check the scale, height, and width, because when we change one, we do want the other to change with it. We want it to stay proportional. And then we click Apply. And it creates this gorgeous little texture for us. Now, if we need to, we do have a seam line where the texture repeats. To fix it, very simple. I'm going to grab my smooth tool, and I'm just going to run kind of over a few of these little meeting points of this texture. And that is good enough. That will work. So at this point, our log is ready. We're going to take it and we want to free float it. So relief cookie cutter. What this does is allows us to now pick it up, rotate it, move around. So we're going to take this log and we're going to move it, oh, say right around here. Let's put that in the fireplace. And we need to make it a little lower. See, it's bigger than the inside of the fireplace. And if you remember, we started the fireplace at a height of 0.25. So let's make that the thickness. I'm going to unlink the Z, but keep the X and Y linked. So I can drop this down to 0.25, which we know is the maximum height for this piece. Allow me to position this correctly. Now we're going to take it, we'll rotate it here and rotate it around. So we're going to have one kind of angled around like this. And then we're going to have another one, so let's bring it over here, rotate this way. Maybe this one laying down a little bit more and pull it kind of like this. And you can mess with these, you can move them around till you find the spot that you want for it. Now you can see they all three kind of mesh one into the other. So we're going to change their thicknesses. We know that this one, I want this one in the front, and we know the max is 0.25, so everything needs to be a little smaller. So if I want this one to sit behind it, let's change its height just a little bit less. We'll do 0.2 and apply. And let's grab this one and make it even a little less. So let's go 0.15 and apply. And now we just reposition. So we're going to kind of position this guy like this. We'll grab this one. Let's position this here. And then this one, which goes over top of everything. We'll position there. That works. Okay, once we're done with this, we are just going to check our layers so our logs are active. We'll grab all three of those and we'll make sure that our relief layer is on emerge and enter. We'll paste them all down for you. And there are the logs for our fireplace. The last thing we have to do is to actually make the fire for the fireplace. So for this one, we're going to load in an existing image. I'm going to go to my 2D view for this, and I'm going to expand my bitmap layers. Let's make a new bitmap layer. So we're going to import. We have here a picture of flames that we're going to use, and we're going to have ArtCAM reduce it and trace it for us. So to do this, we use the bitmap to vector function, and we choose reduce colors, and let's start dropping this slider bar down. Typically go all the way down to the end, but in this case it's just too much, too far. I've lost too many colors. So I'm going to back up until I get to the semblance of a flame that I can trace. That looks good, so let's apply that. And then pick the color that you want to trace down at the bottom and click Create Vectors. That has made that shape for us. Now let's go back to our 3D view. Actually, we can work from the 2D as well. What I want you to see is, because of the pixels, we have a few little bumps here. So we're going to fix those up. To do that, the first thing I would suggest is check your nodes. In node editing, you still have a lot of points. So one quick way to clean this up is to use the spline tool. Let's spline this. Let's set up, oh, maybe not that big. Let's go 0.05 and click spline. So that got rid of a lot of nodes, but we still have a few kind of little messy areas. So here I'm going to maybe select this, delete, maybe smooth or delete. We have a little bit of a mess there. Just a few little areas where, it could look a little bit better. Yeah, that'll work. It's clean enough we can use the part. Oh, maybe just this one here. Let's delete that and take this piece and just straighten it back out the way it should be. There. Okay, I'm happy with that set of flames. That's good. Now, of course, we always want to take our piece and F9 to center it. And then we're going to do a T to transform. So we can make it just a little bit smaller, like this. and maybe drag it down a little bit. The Alt key is what will keep it straight. Still a little bit too big. Let's go down a little further here and then just a little smaller. That will probably work for what we need. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is actually make these 3D. Now to do this, we're going to use the transform, and I want 3 sets of flames for my 3D actual finished relief of the flames. So I'm going to use my transform and just shrink this down. Let's say one around there, and let's do one a little bit smaller still. Yeah, around there looks good. Take this, we'll pull this down to the base, and we'll take this one, we'll pull this down towards the base. And then if we have any spots like this, I can use the transform. We're just going to make that a little bit thinner so that we're not overlapping the outside edge. That works. Okay, so there are our 3 flames. Now let's make this 3D. So we're going to make one more relief layer. Call this flames. And let's start with our shapes. Let's make sure that it's on emerge. We're going to grab the outer one, grab our shape editor, and we're going to go round, but 45 is way too much. So let's do something like 15. But don't forget, we also have a 0.1 background here. So we need to give this a start height of at least 0.1, maybe a little extra for an extra piece. Let's apply. If I turn the vectors off, you can see the shape that we've just given this. Now let's grab one more. Actually, you know what? We're going to go a little bit taller with this to get past, see the piece of wood that's sticking through here. So if we go a little bit taller, let's try 0.15. That works. We'll merge that in. We'll apply that. Now let's grab the second set of flames. This one we're actually going to go round, but we're going to go in the negative. So I'm going to drop this down somewhere around there. Okay, and we're going to apply that. And we'll grab this last set. We're going to go round again. And let's go, somewhere around there, apply and cancel. Now, if we turn our vectors off, we still have just a little piece of the wood coming through. And we can fix that pretty easy. I'll show you a nice little trick here. If I activate that logs layer, I can either use a vector and clip this right out, or if I want something a little more natural, a little more faded looking, I can use my smooth tool, and if I grab the erase, what's going to happen is by default it erased your last changes in the sculpting, but I can change it to erase to base plane, and I can use this and it'll only erase the logs layer because that's the only thing that's active. And you can see I can kind of come through and I can erase out part of those logs. I can even do this, go a little further down. There we go. Let's close that. Let's turn our zero plane off and take a look at our finished fireplace. So we've done a lot in a short time in this tutorial. We've gone through, we've quickly sketched out the general shape for the fireplace. We applied texture, we smoothed that out. We worked with some existing clip art. We made those logs from scratch using the extrude and the texture, and we also did the fire. Now, there will be another session attached to this one, which is a series of tips and tricks where we'll go through in further detail some really cool ideas with this project. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the seminar.